Hi, everybody, and welcome to this week's Matrix Live, episode 22, I think.
Yeah.
Coming from the twilight of our offices here in Chiswick, where we've been squatting now for almost 6 months.
Yeah. Although, as always, we're disorganized and miss the twilight again. Instead, we're great.
It was a metaphorical twilight.
Okay.
I was talking about it on a kind of yearly basis. Anyway, our crepuscular times here, one way or another, literally or figuratively. Should we talk about funding?
I'm not sure, honestly.
So yeah, funding's an interesting one because we've been trying to be as transparent as possible on it, and it's one of these hilarious nightmare things. But the more transparent we seem to be, the more it's likely that some people, or one person in particular, is going to take everything we say and somehow find it to mean the opposite of what we're trying to say. So I think rather than spoiling the fun for everybody else, we'll try to spell it out as clearly and unambiguously as possible. So this week's update, at the risk of jinxing it, we are tantalisingly close to a positive solution, not a negative one, a positive one, on long-term funding. We need basically one final signature, which is ideally should be instant, but due to the magic of corporate bureaucracy, is probably at least a week or two away. And then hopefully we're sorted. So watch this space to see what happens there. Um, Patreon,
Patreon, meanwhile, is having fun
yeah, but
and
they
rollbacking their changes.
yeah, so Patreon screwed it all up, and then they unscrewed it all up, but it was too late. But either way, thank you for people who switched from Patreon to one of the other mechanisms, and everybody else, it's still safe to use Patreon or something. Either way, what a mess, and we're glad that that drama is over now.
Yep. Yeah.
Should I talk
Synapse,
about?
yeah, you can continue
Yeah,
your.
no, I'll monologue on
Yeah.
Synapse
Go
stuff
ahead.
and to tell us variety stuff.
Yeah.
Deal. Okay. As you see, this is all carefully organised in advance. So Synapse, relatively quiet week, although we did release candidate one of Synapse 026, which isn't that exciting. It has a couple of fairly important bug fixes, like the ability to join Matrix Dev, which unfortunately got a bit corrupted, but that's fixed in 26, and the actual release probably should have happened yesterday or today, but we forgot, so it will go out on Monday instead. My end-to-end encryption API improvements have got a bit stuck because I've been messing around with funding stuff and general organizational stuff, but it should land soon. Hopefully, we should have a fix in sight for general project management on Synapse and helping manage the huge GitHub issue and PR tire fire that we've accumulated at the moment. Watch this space to see what happens there.
This is where I was like, who is he talking about? That's wake up, I'm on the.
Yes, it's been a long week,
Sorry.
as always, but it's a secret either way. And finally, Michael, tech guy, is starting to look at making search work again. Not actually in Synapse, but potentially as an application service which can be used on all home servers,
That would be great.
whether it's Synapse or Dendrite or Rumor or any of the others out there. So watch this space to see what happens there. Finally, for me, on Dendrite progress in general, things we've got steady progress between Erik and Rich plugging away at it. Erik got pagination working, that was very exciting, and I foolishly asked if we could do one of the screencasty demos to show this happening in person. Suggested that we loaded the entirety of H.G. Wells's War of the Worlds into it, which used to be one of our standard ways of testing Synapse back in the day. The only slight catch is that loading War of the Worlds into Dendrite apparently exposes some interesting race conditions, which means the whole thing exploded. And on the plus side, we're fixing those, but we don't have a nice glossy demo yet of the pagination.
Because we're using our demo to do some load testing.
Yeah, well, I've got like all the best
That's great.
things, but yeah, it's a bit embarrassing that we can't keep up with the output of H.G. Wells. Perhaps we should have tried the Time Machine or the Invisible Man or oh, and, hang on, am I getting mixed up with Jules Verne or Jules Verne?
Jules Verne.
I probably am.
We can probably.
We should go through the entire Victorian sci-fi pantheon. And finally, Rich has been plugging away on key management to get Federation actually work. This, I mean, in some ways it sounds simple, make Federation work. And it was already working other than the key management a few months ago. But it turns out that getting a sensible implementation of the key management stuff is a nightmare. And every time you knock down one problem, you find a whole set more. And on the plus side, when it's done, we basically have a huge chunk of the hardest bit of Dendrite finally resolved. And his plugin wears it, and apparently it's going cautiously well. Okay, right.
Riot. So Riot Web, the left panel, community panel, as I like to call it.
Tag panel, or possibly group panel, or left sidebar.
We had this debate last week, I think.
We still haven't got a conclusion though. What should we call it? I mean,
we're talking about communities, so it's a community management panel.
Yeah, I like it. Community panel would be good. We'll get it renamed in the codes, and then heaven forbid the two might match.
So it's still being refined, and with the I don't know when we were going to release that. Still a few weeks, 1 week away at least.
Yeah, I don't know. It's exposing some interesting performance stuff because as you toggle the things on and off, it has to re-render your whole room list, which can take a while.
Yeah.
And the drop and drag stuff is a pain in the ass to get right.
So it's progressing, and that's good. On the other PRs, we're behind, so sorry for that. But that's we're having Dave on holiday this week, which is not helping. And it includes one for rich quoting, on which Michael/Tech Guy has been working on, and which will be fun as well. But it's stuck for now. It will be around soon.
Yeah, I promised to review it earlier in the week, but I just haven't got to it yet. And so basically we have, for a change, a ton of PLs stacked up, needing somebody to review them.
On Riot Mobile, we have groups landed on the dev branch of Android.
About an hour ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, I haven't installed it or tried it yet.
So Android folks, you heard it here first. Go play with groups and see whether it works.
It's view only. You cannot create ones yet, but at least you can see your groups from web.
That's good enough.
Yeah. And on iOS, groups are progressing, and there were push problems that were being investigated and not solved yet.
Yeah, we've no idea what's going on there. If anybody's on iOS and they're saying unreliable push, please tell us loud, because we're not sure how things have changed. They really shouldn't have changed. Empirically, in the last 2-3 days, we've had a lot of people popping up, like my wife, for instance, saying it doesn't work. So please let us know.
Yep, bridges.
Oh, shall I talk about bridges?
Yes.
Okay, 2 quick ones. First of all, huge news that the Freenode IRC bridge may actually be, for the first time in its life ever, stable. Touch wood. So basically, that's only because there was one failure mode that we're aware of that actually takes it out when there's a net split. And it's been a nightmare to track down for various reasons, mainly because when it explodes with tens of gigabytes of heat, and we can't attach a debugger to it, and then the debugger crashes, and then it's very hard to tell the symptoms from the cause. But I think that Dave, just before he went on holiday, tracked down the root cause, which is something to do with calculating the length of the list by iterating over it rather than using dot length or something like that. And rather embarrassingly, having fixed that, it all seems to be fine. And we have withstood a bunch of major net splits on Freenode in the last couple of days. So huge apologies to everybody who got bitten by the increasingly bad instability problems there. But hopefully we finally got to the bottom of it, and it's hot fixed on the 0.8 release branch of the RC bridge, and it's also one developed to if you happen to be running your own. Well, then practice, unless you're connecting to Freenode with tens of thousands of users, you're probably not going to be bitten by it anyway. And finally on bridges, let me get this right. Erdnaxeli. It's an anagram. I bet it's Alexi nerd. Tell us, Erdnaxeli, is your net an anagram of Alexi nerd? Either way, he's taken over maintainership of Matrix App Service Slack. We should have mentioned this last week, but we forgot. And has landed a whole bunch of PRs which were stacked up there. The reason for this is that we don't currently have anybody working on bridges on the core team at all, and he's been maintaining his own branch, and so it's very, very, very grateful and helpful for him to be helping maintain the official distribution. So thank you for that.
Indeed. And then widgets. Exciting stuff on widgets this week. There is TradingView, which made its apparition. So I think a bunch of people are very happy to have now the exchange direct view into the exchange of Ethereum, Bitcoin, or whatever the currency you're trading, which is great. And Spotify, to which I haven't tried yet, so because I'm using Deezer, but I will have to create a Spotify account. And
Such a cultural cliche to be using
yes.
Deezer rather than Spotify.
Yeah. Yeah, so Spotify as a widget exclusively for you. And let's try it. And
So this is basically embedding both the trading views of the cryptocurrencies and
we're having
random.
some noise.
Attention, please.
Oh,
Attention,
We
please.
thought we
We
avoided
are
it.
investigating an alarm condition.
An alarm
It may
condition.
be necessary to evacuate the building.
So
Remain in your area and listen for further instructions.
they've been heckling us with random announcements like this all day. Either that or possibly the building's about to explode. We don't know. Watch this space. But God, I'm going to be glad to get out of here. Although I'm going to miss the sunsets. And by the way, if anybody's wondering if we're going to be out on the street living in a cardboard box come the end of the year, where technically we do get kicked out of here at last. And in fact, this is our last ever Matrix Live, hopefully, together from here, because you're going to be away next week, back in France. So, end of a hopeful era. But we're not going to be living on the street. Best case, we're going to be living in a pub or somewhere else for a couple of weeks, whilst hopefully funding
Attention,
lands.
please. It was a false alarm. Nobody needs to evacuate.
Oh, really?
Oh,
really?
Some engineers on site who set the alarm off by mistake. Thank you.
No, you don't say. I talk about being heckled by. Anyway, never mind. It was a very important technical discussion we were having, wasn't it?
Yeah.
We're going to go and work.
Pubs.
Yeah, we're going to work in a pub or something like that, and finalise a new office as soon as we get funding to actually pay for one. So, in case you're particularly worried, that's what's hopefully going to happen there. And finally, on widgets, did we talk about the fact
No,
that...
the last one.
So there's been this weird problem that's been plaguing us for months now with widgets, where sometimes they come up with forbidden 403 errors when you try to use them. We finally worked out that it's related to Riot Desktop with particular phases of the moon, and depends on the platform the widgets were provisioned on. And Rick is trying to dig into it with Tech Guy to find out what the deal is. And that's probably it. Are we missing anything?
I don't think so. You're sure it's that guy on the widget stuff?
Yeah, because his, especially in Dave's absence, his the Electron guru, and whatever is happening here is that was it. It's something to do with how the cookie store works on Electron, and something goes wrong. Quite why we're using cookies, I'm not sure. But hey.
Should just mean spy.
It'd be more traditional, or macaroons. How. Crypto jokes on crypto jokes. Anyway, I guess that's probably it for this week.
Yeah, I think so.
Thanks
Probably
everybody
better
for.
Anyway. Probably better if we stop here.
Yeah, we should just stop waffling. Thank you everybody for using and supporting Matrix, and have a fantastic weekend and week ahead.
See you soon. Bye.
Bye.